Hello students, welcome back to Botany Tutorials. I am Dr. Anju Kanwar from Botany Department, Government PG College, Ambala, Kerala. Students, this lecture is in continuation with the previous lecture on Oedogonium, where they have already covered and learned about the plant body and asexual mode of reproduction. And in part 2 of Oedogonium, we are going to learn about the sexual mode of reproduction. So let's start with sexual reproduction in Oedogonium. This lecture has the following objectives. Depending upon the distribution of sex organs, the species of Oedogonium, they are divided into two categories, macrandrous species and nonandrous species. Then you will know about the structure and formation of antheridium, which is the male gametangium that produces male gamete called as entherozoid. What is the structure and how the entherozoids are liberated. Then you will know about the structure and formation of oogonium, which is the female gametangium. Then how fertilization occurs between the male and female gamete that leads to the formation of zygote or oospore, and how oospore forms the new plant. The sexual reproduction in Oedogonium, it shows an advanced type of oogamy. So what is oogamy? The sex organs or the gametes, they differ physiologically as well as structurally in oogamous condition, where the male gametes, they are produced in large number, they are small in size, and they bear flagella, they are motile in nature. On the other hand, the female gamete, it is large, singly produced, and it is never liberated. The gametes are produced inside the specialized reproductive organ, which is called as gametangium. The male gametangium is called as antheridium that produces entherozoid, and the female gametangium is known as oogonium that produces female gamete. Sexual reproduction occurs in those filaments that grows in white water, and the environmental conditions that favors this process are presence of light, sufficient supply of carbon dioxide, presence of alkaline condition, and nitrogen deficiency in the surrounding water. So let's know about how reproduction occurs in Oedogonium. In Oedogonium, reproduction can occur by three modes, either by vegetative one, asexual one, and the sexual reproduction. In this lecture, we are only going to discuss about the sexual reproduction, as vegetative and asexual reproduction we have already completed in our previous lecture. So let's know about the sex organs. The male sex organ is called as antheridium that produces numerous small flagellated gametes which are called as entherozoids, and the female sex organ is called as oogonium that produces only one large non-motile egg. As I said, depending upon the distribution of sex organs, the species of Oedogonium, they are divided into two categories, macrandrous species and nonandrous species. So let's know about what is macrandrous species. Students, in macrandrous species, the male and the female filaments, that bear the male and female gametangium. They are similar in structure. We cannot distinguish them. The condition could be monoecious or dioecious. Here you can see the picture. In Macarandrous monoecious conditions, we have one plant on which there is Oedogonium as well as Antheridias. So, Antheria and Oogonia, they are born on the same filament. This type of condition is called as monoecious or bisexual. Examples are Oedogonium nodulosum, Oedogonium fragile, and Oedogonium hemi. Whereas in the other condition, that is Macarandrous dioecious condition, we have two plants, male plant and female plant. The male plant, it bears Antheridia and the female plant bears Oedogonium. Both the filaments, they are similar and you cannot distinguish them, but physiologically they are different because one bears Antheridia and the other bears Oogonia. This type of condition is called as dioecious condition or unisexual condition. Examples are Oedogonium crassum, Oedogonium aquaticum, etc. On the other hand, in Nanandrous, the male and the female filaments, they show dimorphism and they are morphologically different. The Antheridias are born by a special, very much reduced male filament which is called as dwarf male or Nanandrium. This dwarf male, it grows epiphytically either on the Oedogonium or on the supporting cell. Supporting cell is the cell which is just below the Oedogonium. So let's take one by one that how sexual reproduction occurs in Macarandrous species, followed by how sexual reproduction occurs in Nanandrous species. First, let's know about Antheridia, which is the male gametangium. The Antheridias, they are flat, short, cylindrical structures which are either born terminally or intercalary in the filament. They lie in a row of 2 to 40 cells, and on maturity, each Antheridium, they develop into 2 antherozoids and rarely one. Then how Antheridias are formed? Just take a know briefly about this. One cell, it behaves as an antheridial mother cell that divides into 2 unequal cells. The upper cell is smaller in size and it behaves as antheridium, while the lower cell, it is larger in size and it behaves as a sister cell. Now the sister cell, it divides number of times in the same manner and form row of Antheridia. And on maturity, the protoplast inside each Antheridium, it divides by transfer division to form 2 antherozoids. So students, each Antheridium, it forms 2 antherozoids. Each antherozoid, it is pale green or yellowish green in color, either spherical or pear-shaped, and bears a ring of apical flagella on its anterior end just below the colorless beak. So they resemble the zoospore. Zoospores are the spores which are produced during the asexual reproduction. So enterozoids, they resemble the zoospores in the type of flagellation, morphology, as well as in the mode of libration. But they are smaller in size, they have fewer flagella, and they contain less chlorophyll. Then these enterozoids, they escape during libration, they escape into a thin vesicle by formation of a transverse slit in the plant body where the entheridias are present, and the liberated enterozoids, they then swim freely and finally reaches to the oogonia. Now let's know about oogonia. Firstly, let's briefly know about the development of oogonium. Oogonium, it develops from a single cell which is called as the oogonial mother cell. This oogonial mother cell, it divides by transverse wall into two daughter cells. Out of these two daughter cells, the upper cell, which contains large nucleus and is rich in cytoplasm, it behaves as the oogonium. Whereas the lower cell, which is towards the distal end, it behaves as a supporting cell, or we can also call it as suffultory cell. Now coming to the structure of oogonium. Oogonium, it is a single large cell which changes into a single egg. Inside of the oogonium, whole of the protoplasm along with the nucleus, it changes into a single egg where the nucleus is centrally located and the color of the egg is green. Here the color is yellow, but actually the color of the ovum or the egg, it is green because of the presence of chlorophyll. Egg is never ever liberated and it is non-motile. As enterozoids, they are motile structures, whereas the egg, it is a non-motile structure which is never liberated. And in a mature ovum, the nucleus, it migrates from the oogonial wall and forms a clear patch which is known as the receptive spot. Oogonia in Macrandro species. Two conditions are seen in Macrandro species. If the species are monoecious, then the entheridia and the oogonia, they will be born on the same filament. Whereas in case of dioecious species, we have two different filaments. One is the male filament which bears entheridia, and one is the female filament which bears oogonia. So we have two distinct filaments. Now let's know about sexual reproduction in case of Nanandrous species. In Nanandrous type, the oogonia, the structure of oogonia is similar, but the plant, it shows dimorphism. Here, the sexual processes, they are very complicated, and the distribution of sex organs, that is entheridium and oogonium, it is very peculiar. As I said, the oogonia are produced on a normal filament, which we have already studied in the Macrandrus species. But the Enthridium, they are born on a special small filament, which is known as the dwarf male, or you can also call it as nanandrium. So let's know about how this small dwarf male is formed. The dwarf male, it is produced by a special spore which is known as androspores. These androspores, they are just like zoospores, which are formed during the asexual reproduction, and they also resemble enterozoids in shape and structure. But androspores are smaller than zoospores and a bit larger than the enterozoids. This is the structure of androspores. Androspores, students, they are formed inside a sporangia, which is known as androsporangia. Any of the vegetative cell, it undergoes transfer division to form flat discoid cells which almost resembles antheridias of the Macrandrus species. The androspores, they are singly formed, means in each androsporangium, the single nuclei along with the protoplasm, it changes into a single androspore, which are motile because of the presence of ring of flagella towards their anterior end. During the libration of the androspores, a slit appears on the wall of the androsporangium, and the androspores, they comes out in a small vesicle which soon degenerates, and the androspore, it becomes free. Now, the androspore, it swims in all directions until it reaches the female filament, where it either gets attached on the wall of the oogonia or on the supporting cell. After its attachment, cell wall is laid down around the androspore, which then germinates to form the nanandrium or the dwarf male filament. The nanandrium, it is attached on the female plant by a rhizoid-like cell, which is also known as stalk cell. Now, this one-celled germling, this is the androspore, which settles by its anterior end and germinates by laying down of the wall, is now known as one-cell germling. It is actually the holdfast cell or the attaching cell. Now it cuts off one or more cells towards their tip, which now functions as entheridium. What I said is, the androspore, it germinates on the female plant to form a single cell structure, which we are calling it as the attaching cell. This attaching cell now undergoes division to form one or more flat cells at their tip, and this cell now functions as entheridium, where the protoplasm of the entheridium, the nucleus of the entheridium, it divides to form two nuclei. That nuclei along with the protoplasm, it changes to form entherozoid. Therefore, each entheridium, it produces two entherozoids. This is what we have already studied in Macarandra species, that in each entheridium, two entherozoids are formed. Now, once they attain maturity, the entherozoids, they are liberated by the rupture of the entheridial cell or either by the separation of the upper lid, which is there at the top of the entheridium. So, we have studied about how the male gamete is formed, how the female gamete is formed, how these gametes, they are formed in the Macarandra species, and how they are formed in the Nanandra species. Now the next part is, these gametes, they have to come together and there will be fusion of nuclei along with the protoplasm, as a result of which a diploid structure will be formed, which is called as zygote, and the process is known as fertilization. So, the entherozoids, they comes out from the pore or a slit which is formed on the oogonial wall. Now the entherozoids, it swim towards the oogonium, which is because of the diffusion of a chemical substance which is secreted by the mature egg. That chemical, it attracts the entherozoids. The entherozoid then reaches the ovum, and where there will be fusion of protoplasm followed by nuclei, as a result of which we will get a zygote, which is diploid in nature. As entherozoid and egg, they were haploid, and by the fusion of two haploid gametes, we are getting a diploid structure that is known as zygote or oospore. After fertilization, the oospore, it secretes a heavy wall around it that is orange in color, which gives orange color to the oospore. Now, by the rupture of the oogonial wall, oospore is liberated, which swims in water and rests at the bottom of the pond for some time. And after that period of rest, it germinates to produce the plant. So let's know about the germination of oospore, how it occurs. The diploid oospore, it first undergoes meiotic division. Meiotic is a reductional division to form 4 haploid nuclei. What I said is, the zygote, which is diploid structure, it undergoes meiotic division to form 4 haploid nuclei. The red color of the protoplast, it changes to green color. Then all the nuclei, they are organized into 4 daughter protoplasts by the cleavage of the protoplast. So now we are getting 4 uninucleate daughter protoplasts. Soon after that, each of the haploid daughter protoplast, it forms a crown of flagella at their anterior end, just below the opaque side, and become motile. Their structure is also similar with that of the zoospore, androspore, as well as antherozoid. The structure is similar. Now these spores are known as meiospores or meiozospores. Here we are using the word meo because these spores have been formed after the reductional division, after the meiotic division. That's why we are using the word meiozospores or meiospores. Once the spores are formed, now these spores are haploid. We have 4 spores which are haploid. The oogonial wall, it ruptures and all these 4 meiozospores, they migrate, they come out in a vesicle. That vesicle will rupture, liberating the meiozospore. These meiozospores now get free and they attach on a substratum by their anterior end, which is then followed by secretion of the wall, absorption of the flagella, and formation of the new plant. So let's revise reproduction with this diagrammatic life cycle. There are 3 modes of reproduction: vegetative, asexual, and sexual. In vegetative, fragmentation occurs and each fragment can develop into a mature plant. In asexual reproduction, it occurs either by formation of zoospores, which germinates to form the mature plant, or by the formation of echinids, which are produced during unfavorable conditions. And on return of the favorable conditions, they germinate to produce the mature plant. And the third and the last one is sexual reproduction, where fusion of the 2 gametes, that is antherozoid and oogonium, occurs. That forms oospore, and this oospore then undergoes meiotic division to form meiozospores, which then germinates to form the mature plant. This life cycle is found in macrandrospecies, whereas in nonandrous form, the male filament is very small and it is formed by the germination of androspore. This is the only difference, otherwise it follows the same cycle. So this is the diagrammatic life cycle of Oedogonium. These are some questions. These type of questions are generally asked in examination. So you can go through it. Students, I hope you are able to understand this topic and find it valuable for enhancing your learning on Oedogonium. For any query and suggestion, you can comment in my chat box. And thank you for watching.